On the African plains hundreds of millions of years ago, there once existed a colossus measuring over 12 meters in length. It possessed the power to tear through storms, yet in the final chapters of its life, it stepped into an eternal stillness. This immense life belonged to the Behemoth, a creature that remains shrouded in mystery to this day within the scientific community. Tonight, beside the gently flickering hearth, let us journey together into its true life through this story that requires no effort to remember. As the last ray of the setting sun is swallowed by the ancient horizon of the Sahara, the clamor of the world begins to slowly recede. Most predators choose to conceal their forms within the brush, peering through the darkness with greedy eyes. However, this aging Behemoth slowly raises its massive frame, turning its back on the blood-soaked and competitive oasis. It does not go in search of prey, nor does it release a roar to shake the wilderness. It simply walks solitarily toward the stretch of sand blanketed by starlight. Its colossal frame moves beneath the night sky like a slowly shifting mountain, its footsteps leaving a trail of faint rustling among the gravel. That sound is exceptionally gentle, as if an ancient breeze were caressing the earth, wafting an empty yet healing tranquility that soothes the soul. The daytime Sahara was a brutal battlefield ruled by scorching heat and hunger, where behemoths unleashed raw violence without reservation just to survive. As one of the absolute apex predators of this land, the first half of the Behemoth's life was similarly intertwined with thunder and blood. It had once trampled dried riverbeds with its long hind limbs and shattered the twilight of eras with its razor-sharp teeth. However, as the hourglass of time drifted to a specific evening, something quietly awakened within its body. It was a weariness born of ceaseless slaughter, paired with the deepest perception of this boundless world. It began to notice that, beyond survival and predation, the night sky above this continent was adorned with countless stars that shimmered untiringly. Thus, during a twilight hunt, it slowly lowered the colossal claw it had already raised, allowing its panicked prey to vanish into the deep of the night. It turned its head, gazing out at the barrens where there was no conflict, only pure starlight, a world where it had never truly halted before. From that exact second, the monarch of the day underwent a metamorphosis in the dark. It chose to shed all its defenses and become the sole traveler beneath the night sky. Its coarse skin still held the residual warmth of the sun, yet under the baptism of the moon, it gradually radiated a gentle and restrained silver glow. The nocturnal barrens were exceptionally vast enough to harbor all the solitude and exhaustion of this giant beast. The Behemoth walked slowly across the soft sand, each step taken as if measured with absolute precision, unhurried and steady. The wind blew from the distant ocean, weaving through the gaps in its massive ribs, emitting a low hum reminiscent of an ancient pan flute. It raised its slightly elongated head, inhaling the chilly, moist air of the night sky, feeling the respiration of the earth. The surrounding air was thick with the crisp aroma of withered ferns and the heavy scent of settling river silt. Here, there were no provocations from competitors, nor any shackles of territorial boundaries. The entire canopy of stars served as its silent curtain. Its gaze was serene and deep, mirroring constellations that had not yet been named by mankind eons ago, lights that had traveled across countless light years just to meet it. Occasionally, it would halt its steps, quietly watching a tiny insect scurry past its colossal toes. That extreme contrast between the immense and the minuscule, far from clashing under the flowing moonlight, dissolved into an ultimate harmony. It did not press its foot down. Instead, it waited patiently for that small spark of life to vanish into the night before resuming its heavy yet gentle pace. As the darkness deepened, the mist upon the barrens began to slowly condense, drifting around the giant beast's ankles like a veil of light. The Behemoth ascended a gentle sand dune, where the horizon opened up, revealing the silhouettes of distant, subtly rolling mountains. The marks of time had etched countless scars across its body, ancient imprints left from contesting territories with Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus. Yet, on such a silent midnight, these scars no longer throbbed with pain. Instead, they turned into the most peaceful symbols within the epic poem of its life. It gently swayed its long tail, the tip brushing against the sandy surface, creating regular, reassuring rustles. This sound echoed through the open expanse between heaven and earth like a wordless lullaby, smoothing away all the restlessness in the night. The world seemed to freeze at this single second, leaving only its regular respirations and the steady thumping of its heart inside that heavy chest. Each breath was accompanied by a subtle rise and fall of its ribcage, the exhaled white mist condensing under the moon before quietly dissolving away. It seemed to be using this manner to hold a final, and gentlest conversation with the ancient continent that had nurtured it for a lifetime. It required no understanding from any companion, nor did it need to leave any proof of its existence. It simply enjoyed the absolute peace of the present moment. A faint ink-blue hue began to tint the distant night sky, signaling that the footsteps of dawn were inevitably drawing near. The Behemoth arrived beside an ancient lake as tranquil as a mirror, its surface flawlessly replicating the entire brilliant Milky Way. It lowered its head slowly, its massive skull suspended just above the water, yet it hesitated to break that perfect stillness. Gazing at its own immense and weathered reflection in the water, there was no terror in its eyes, only a profound restraint born of insight into destiny. The wind blew silently, stirring a delicate ripple across the lake that shattered the mirrored starlight into a sheet of scattered silver. Finally, it took a gentle sip of the cool lake water, droplets sliding from the edge of its mouth to strike the surface, emitting crisp, echoing thuds. This sound traveled remarkably far in the silence before dawn, sounding like a solemn, final farewell extended to the night. It knew that once the day arrived, the world would plunge into clamor and cruelty once more, and its colossal frame would have to shoulder the crushing weight of survival again. Yet, at least during the past few hours, it had possessed a freedom and tranquility that belonged entirely to itself. It turned around, facing the faint glimmer dawning on the horizon, and set foot once more upon the sand of its return journey, its steps remaining rock-solid. The sun ultimately broke through the black curtain of night, blanketing the entire barrens in a warm, heavy golden yellow. Meanwhile, the Behemoth that had strolled through the dark had already laid down within a dense thicket of ferns, sinking into a deep slumber. Upon the sand, it left a long trail of footprints pressed during its night-long journey, extending toward the direction where the starry sky had once existed. The breeze blew, and tiny grains of sand began to flow gently, gradually filling those heavy imprints until not a single trace remained. Just as the torrent of history eventually buried the entire age of dinosaurs, leaving later generations with nothing but boundless imagination and fragmented fossils. Yet, we know that in that distant past, a giant beast used the gentlest method to counter the cruelty of the world. What it left to this land was not a savage roar, but that faint rustling beneath the stars that had comforted countless nights. Now, that Behemoth has fallen into a heavy sleep, the breeze over the barrens has gradually subsided, and the world has returned to its initial serenity. You who listen to this story, please shed the exhaustion and defenses of your day, just like that giant beast that walked beneath a canopy of stars. Close your eyes, follow that faint rustling sound, and peacefully step into your own quiet, gentle dreamscape.